Great pleasure joining us now, Senate Majority Leader, Mr. John Thune of the great state of South Dakota. Senator Thune, welcome back, sir. So my buddy Kevin Hassett was on TV earlier this morning saying maybe the shutdown will end this week. What are your thoughts, Senator Thune?
Well, I hope Kevin Hassett's right, Larry. You know, maybe he'll be a prophetic voice in this circumstance. We'll see when Democrats roll back into town here. As you pointed out, they had their big, protest this weekend, got all their left-wing groups satisfied all over the country. And it seems like at least now they ought to come back to their senses and realize that shutting down the government's not good for anybody. And I think they're starting to feel the heat on that. It's just not a defensible position in the long term. And I think, frankly, that if they don't vote to open up the government, and we'll give them an opportunity here in about an hour, there will be another vote to open up the government, that they're going to have to start explaining to the American people why they consistently vote to shut down the government at a time when there are important priorities that need to be funded, whether that's air traffic control or TSA or Border Patrol, law enforcement, our troops, obviously, first and foremost. Those are all things that very shortly here are not going to get paid if we don't, the government doesn't open up.
Senator Thune, I just don't understand, among other things. So the Democrats voted in favor in the Appropriations Committee for military spending. Now they're against that. Now they're against that. They won't let it even come to the floor, if I'm not mistaken. And they're holding it hostage to a $1 trillion plus Obamacare subsidy, which is going to people here in New York. Somebody did the calculation, Tip Insights or one of the think tanks. People earning $300,000 a year would be eligible for these Obamacare Democratic subsidies. That's crazy. Those are not low-income people. Those are not people that need help. Those are people that are doing very well, $300,000 a year. So let me get this right. No defense. People in harm's way are not going to get their combat pay. Meanwhile, people with $300,000 a year are going to get Democratic subsidies for Obamacare that they don't need. Senator Thune, you got to help me out on this. I don't understand any of it.
I'm at a loss, Larry. I mean, we put the defense appropriations bill on the floor last week, and all it was is a cloture vote on the motion to proceed. They would have two subsequent 60-vote thresholds where they could block the bill if they wanted to. This was simply to get on the bill that funds the military, and they voted against it. I mean, I don't know how you explain that. I don't know how you defend that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, they're obsessing about these Obamacare premium tax credits, these subsidies, as you point out, which do go to a lot of rich people. In fact, in some states, I've seen people making $500,000 or $600,000 a year that are still getting these tax credits. It was a COVID thing. COVID's gone. COVID's over. It's time to move on. And, trying to hijack the federal government in exchange for a $1.5 trillion in new spending and to bail out a program that is failing and is driving insurance premiums up for people in the individual marketplace, I don't know how you defend and explain that. And I think that's starting to sink in with the American people. The Democrats they're going to own this. And like I said, we'll give them another vote this evening to open up the government, see what they do.
You have said to me and other people many, many times, you're more than happy to talk about the Obamacare story after ACR funds the government. I mean, you're willing to negotiate, as far as I can tell. I don't know what they should believe you. You've been around a long time. You're the majority leader. Schumer knows you. It's not like you need an introduction. This is the part I don't get. What's wrong with sitting down and talking after the smoke clears and we have some financing of these key operations?
Right, and I think honestly, again, it's hard to explain. They want a guaranteed outcome, Larry. They want these Obamacare subsidies, which to extend them for 10 years, which is what they're insisting on, is a $400 billion price tag. This was a COVID-era plus-up in the subsidy that people in Obamacare get. It used to be 400% of poverty. They took the income caps off. There are zero premium policies. A lot of people don't even know they're covered because the insurance companies are incentivized to auto-enroll as many people as they can. The insurance company gets paid, and there are a lot of people across the country that don't even know they have a policy. So it is I'm happy to have the conversation about the unaffordability of Obamacare and what we might be able to do to fix that. But you can't do that while the government is being held hostage. And but they want a guaranteed outcome. That's what they continue to insist upon. And I'm offering them a vote. You know, they want to get their proposal out there. We're happy to take a vote on it, but so far they seem dug in. And again, I think this is a lot less about a solution to that problem that they say they are trying to fix, and a lot more about having a political issue and satisfying that far left base that was, marching in places around the country this last weekend.
Yeah, 250 years too late. So last one, I guess there's a meeting at the White House tomorrow for everybody, for Republicans rather. Look, if the Democrats don't want to cooperate, then Russ Vought will pull the trigger. The budget director will pull the trigger. Unnecessary staff, unnecessary programs. Katie by the door. That's the way I read it. What do you think, sir?
Well, you've been in that room, Larry.
Yep.
And there are, and obviously Russ Vought would love to pull that trigger and do some downsizing. And honestly, this is where that's going to go. This is what the Democrats have done to themselves. I mean, honestly, if they want to open up the government, all these issues that are being talked about go away. But if you put this administration in a position where they have to manage a shutdown and they have to make hard decisions about where we're going to move money, how we're going to allocate resources, which agencies, departments are going to get more or less or not at all, which employees are essential, which aren't. Those are the decisions now that Russ Vought and his people are going to be tasked with making. And I'd be willing to bet the Democrats are not going to like a lot of those decisions.
Your colleague and my friend, Senator John Kennedy, was here a week ago or so, and he said Russ Vought is preparing for this day since puberty. He's completely ready. Since puberty, Senator Thune.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it might go back farther than that, actually, Larry. I don't so. I think this was his kindergarten project, I think. So.
All right. So. Majority Leader Senator John Thune from the great state of South Dakota. Thank you, sir, for your time. We appreciate it very, very much.